Pablo Gavi is widely considered as Barcelona's next big thing. Why? Well, despite being a teenager, he's already pretty much a regular starter at one of the biggest clubs in football, represented his country Spain at the World Cup, developed a beautiful partnership with another Barca youngster Pedri, which many consider being similar to that of Xavi and Iniesta's, provided a brilliant man-of-the-match performance at a recent cup final against arch-rivals Real Madrid. He's won the Golden Boy and also the Kopa trophy, doing it all at the age of 18.
The emergence again of Gavi at this level.
Absolutely brilliant.
I started to see Gavi as next top star at Barca.
His aggressive and combative style of football has made him a literal force in the midfield, as his intelligence, at the same time aggressive movement, has ensured he often caused chaos as much as he possibly could.
For a 17-year-old boy to go out and play the way he did tonight with such confidence.
There is a certain nastiness about him.
Creating all kinds of havoc.
I look at him as a guy who's always had to fight to be in the position that he is in.
Although he's nowhere near the finished article, Gavi is showing really promising signs.
Absolutely not normal.
He had a goal as well as 2 assists.
Xavi loves this boy.
He's not going to let go of this opportunity. He's going to hang tight to this opportunity.
For small players, they've got to be technically much better than the other, because if he's too slow, the big one will hit him over.
I look at him as a guy who's always had to fight to be in the position that he is.
Gavi is a product of Barcelona's La Masia academy, arriving at the club at the age of 13 after spending 2 seasons at Real Betis youth ranks. Gavi was promoted into Barcelona's first team during a really difficult period in both the sporting and financial aspects of the club.
The club are now £1.15 billion in debt.
Now, in order to be able to dig themselves out of this mess, the club's hierarchy at the time appointed former Barcelona player Ronald Koeman as the new manager of the club, with the hopes of returning Barcelona to its roots. As a former player who was integral to the club's earlier successes under the legendary Johan Cruyff, Koeman knew how important the culture that was gradually eroded by this administration and even the one before them was to the success of the club. In a bid to get the club back to its former glory, he began promoting players from La Masia, players with the quote-unquote Barcelona DNA, into the first team, and that was when Gavi happened. Gavi, coming from La Masia, is widely considered as Barcelona personified, not in terms of class and success, at least not yet, but in terms of his identity as a player. I know a lot of people say this about pretty much any La Masia graduate that is successful even in the slightest, and while the same is currently happening with Gavi, it's hard to deny that in his case, this is actually true. Gavi is an extremely talented midfielder who has an amazing interpretation of space and positioning, good vision, and a certain level of elegance whenever he is on the ball, qualities which are often expected from literally any midfielder that comes out of La Masia. But Gavi has something else that hasn't been given as much praise as the on-the-ball elegance displayed by several great Barcelona midfielders in the past, and that is his fighting spirit and aggression.
So if you want to ask me about reckless madheads, ask me about Gavi.
Players like Gavi are very integral to teams like Barcelona because they add that extra bit of passion and drive to get the ball and do something even if it's when the team is losing. This kind of character has often been non-existent during several of Barcelona's embarrassing Champions League exits. The hunger their opponents showed during these matches were miles above that of Barcelona's, and it's often why they tore through them whenever they got the chance. Gavi, with what I've seen from him so far, absolutely hates it when his opponents have possession anywhere close to him. Like a bull seeing red, he often charges to retrieve the ball, very much aggressive.
There is a certain nastiness about him.
Yeah.
There's a chip on the shoulder, there's a bite. It's obviously a kid that has always been told you're too small to play.
Johan Cruyff, the man who began the whole revolution at Barca, a man whose principles make up the core of the Barcelona DNA, built his team with one of the fundamental philosophies of always having the ball at all times. Barca's director of methodology, Johan Villa, states via AS that since Cruyff took over the Catalan club as manager, Barca's DNA became the idea to have the ball to play and enjoy. He expands on this by pointing out the relationship between the player and the ball is the fundamental of the entire Barca game. For Cruyff, retrieving possession was equally as important as keeping it, because if you starve your opponents of the ball, they can't hurt you. The team that has the ball is the owner of the game. With the ball, we are able to enjoy. Without it, we're simply just running. Gavi is operating on the last line of this quote, referencing one of Johan Cruyff's key principles. Without it, we are simply running. In order to combat this last line, Cruyff made sure to have players who had garra, which is a Spanish word for claw and is also used to describe courage. Well-renowned Spanish football expert Graham Hunter expanded on this, saying, when Cruyff came here to Barcelona, the first thing he brought was Basque to build the dream team. He wanted people with fighting spirit, the garra, with power, who win the jump in the air. These players were rugged and would often do anything to get the ball back when the team is out of possession. Gavi clearly doesn't like it whenever his team is not in possession. Players like him have long been part of Barcelona's success in the past, like Carles Puyol, Javier Mascherano, and the Basque players, as Graham Hunter put it, during Cruyff's dream team era, and so on. Cruyff was said to have valued this trait in players, as they add this extra bit of fight into the team. Players like this would often launch themselves in front of any obstacle so more technically gifted players can hold possession and do what they do best. But you know what makes Gavi all the more special? He is both of these kinds of players, the technically gifted ones and the die-hard rugged ones. Although his approach to tackling his opponents can be quite dangerous, and he also needs to work on his anger. Ever since his La Liga debut on the 29th of August 2021 in a 2-1 win over Getafe, Gavi has gone from strength to strength. His fighting spirit, competitive and combative-aggressive nature mixed with his elegance on the ball has made Barcelona fans all over the world constantly sing his praises after almost every single match.
At this level, against this quality of player, for a 17-year-old boy to go out and play with such confidence, such composure, and the ability to get on the ball and find
you saw
space.
He was being tracked.
Seeing a player that young play with so much passion for the club is bound to make anybody happy. Although there have been complaints about the extent of which he displays his aggression, as many football fans have often rather interpreted it as him being unnecessarily rash, but this is something he can definitely work on as time goes on. 2022 was the year Gavi finally held his own and began showing people exactly what he was made of. Now under new manager at the time, Xavi, he became an integral part in this Barcelona team and has even managed to make a name for himself on the international stage with Spain at the World Cup. He won the 2022 Golden Boy Award as well as the Kopa trophy in controversial fashion, as many fans believe one out of the Bundesliga duo of Borussia Dortmund's Jude Bellingham and Bayern Munich's Jamal Musiala was more deserving of the award. Nonetheless, this directed further exposure to Gavi's way as many began viewing him along with Pedri as the future of Barcelona. His manager Xavi was so impressed with one of his performances that he affectionately referred to his display as like he had heart in his legs. It doesn't surprise me. I see him train every day. It's down to hard work, discipline and heart. He was the best player in the game because of his intensity, fight, passing, high pressing. He has heart in his legs. Soon after, he was at the World Cup representing Spain, a side which featured 8 Barcelona players. In Spain's opening game against Costa Rica, Gavi absolutely ran the show as La Roya put 7 goals past the Costa Ricans without reply, despite having a world-class multi-Champions League winning goalkeeper in their team. Gavi's stats for the match are as follows: 91 touches, 8 final third entries, 7 duels won, 5 ball recoveries, 5 fouls won, 1 assist, 1 shot, and 1 goal. His goal in this match saw him become the youngest player in Spain's history and 3rd youngest player overall to score at the World Cup at 18 years of age, only behind Manu Rosa in 2nd place and Pelé in 1st place.
El Gavi de dentro del terreno de juego, eso es un volcán en erupción, juega entre las líneas como nadie, se perfila para jugar y para recibir con derecha, con izquierda, se atreve, es osado, tiene gol, tiene último pase, tiene trabajo defensivo.
Unfortunately, the Spaniards would not have much success at the tournament as they would later be knocked out by eventual semi-finalists, Morocco. Gavi carried his superb form into his post-World Cup life as he ran the show in a recent Spanish Super Cup final El Clasico against Real Madrid, even being named the man of the match. He ended the game with 1 goal and 2 assists. He also had a 98% pass success rate, completing 45 out of 46 passes, as well as also completing every single pass he made in the opponent's 18-yard box. The game was over and Barca were crowned champions. Gavi, along with his friend and partner in crime Pedri, have been so good that they have been compared to Xavi and Iniesta. With majority of football fans seeing Pedri as a very similar player to Iniesta, Gavi just isn't like Xavi. There's this misconception, maybe due to their similarities in name, that Gavi is the next Xavi, but that is not the case at all. Gavi is a completely different player from Xavi. Even Pedri is more similar to Xavi than Gavi is to Xavi. That is not to say that their partnership isn't anything like that of Xavi and Iniesta, because the understanding both players share is on the same level as their predecessors, but just in a different way. What makes these two all the more exciting is that they have a really good chance to become something much more. Xavi and Iniesta were not as good as they are right now when they were their age, an admission even Xavi has made. They have a really good chance here. Xavi seems to be building something special at Barcelona, and Gavi and Pedri will be at the core of it.
Bueno, Gavi es un chico que nos emociona a todos, ¿no? Cuando lo ves competir así, ¿no? Es que pone un alma y un corazón y un carácter que lo imprime y lo contagia al equipo, ¿no? Con 18 años. Tiene una capacidad de liderazgo innato, le sale de dentro, ¿no? Y le sale este coraje y esta rabia, ¿no? Para jugar a fútbol. Es espectacular, de verdad.
One problem, however, that Barca may face is the issue of keeping Gavi, because till date, the contract he signed last year has not been registered due to their financial troubles. They could very well lose Gavi if they don't come up with a solution soon, but let's just hope for their sake that this doesn't happen.